And we go. Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. Very excited that you guys are here. We have been doing this series with Jody at Red Read Reviews for the whole year so far, and we're having a blast just talking about books that she's read and that she loves. So before I get started, I just want to say thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting this program, as well as to the other libraries who have partnered with us to make it happen. So go, Jody. I'm expecting we're going to be talking about horror movie today.
That is number like 6 on my list. I don't know how you knew that, but maybe it's because I met with Paul last week. So I don't know, but we'll get there. I guess I can go out of order. Let's start with horror movie. I met Paul Tremblay. I've seen him a couple times. He's a Massachusetts resident. I'm sure you all know. He has a new book out called Horror Movie. Came out last Tuesday. I went to his book launch at Brookline. It's got sprayed edges. I don't know how you feel about sprayed edges. This is my first one with sprayed edges. I am all about that. So his new book is called Horror Movie. It's about making the move. Like, everybody knows that he made a movie. Paul Tremblay made a movie. Well, his book became a movie. And this is kind of like his experience with bringing a book to life in cinema, and how they kind of can change things, and how they are, and how they treat the artist that originally produced the work. So it's kind of like that, but it's also an insight into Paul, I think, as a teenager. It's very much one of the main characters is known as the Thin Kid. I don't believe he ever has given a name, and it's Paul. He's like this dorky, lanky kid who's into different kinds of music, and he's the outsider. And I think Paul really put himself out in this book in that character. But it's not just Paul; it's all of us. I related to this kid. He's, the geeky loser that kind of just hangs out at the end of the friend group. And this friend group is making a movie, and he's going to be essentially the creepy character in the movie. So it's supposed to be about a cursed movie because the movie never got made, and it's in production. And it jumps from, this is Paul's new thing, is doing weird edits in his books. Like, where is it? Oh God, where is it? I'm not going to find it. In the Paul Bearers Club, he jumped around and did little notes in the margins. I don't know if you guys can see that. Like, this is all, it's red as opposed to black. And so he has like someone that's editing this book while it's being written. So he does a lot of, see, there's underlining of it right there. He's getting more into, I don't even know if that's not called meta, is that? I think that might be meta. I don't know.
That was the word that came to my mind.
Is that's okay? So that's what I think it is. I'm not really down with the hip lingo yet. So this one actually has a screenplay within it, and it jumps from the screenplay to the actual what's happening currently and in the past, and it follows the 4 teenagers, and it becomes kind of like this mashup between reality of making the movie, the new movie being made of the original movie, and this Thin Kid's experience, the whole thing. And it is a horror book. This is the first book I have read of Paul's where I did have uncomfortable moments, which is, for me, it's like, oh, Jody got uncomfortable. Oh my God, it's got to be a big deal. There's some creepy stuff that happens, some body horror that happens that was, I think it was essential to the story. But it was a lot for Paul. I feel like he really put himself in this book. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. I'm not sure, but usually all Paul's books are like huge for me. So this was a huge book. I recommend getting this if you're into horror. If you want to try Paul, any other books, Cabin at the End of the World is my favorite.
I do want to ask you, and I want to tell people to put questions that you have for Jody in the Q&A or in the chat. We're not that fancy. But what is it about Paul that people love? Like, he came here to this library last year and people were just lined up to have him sign their books. I know there's this guy that follows him around to every event.
George? Are you talking about George?
I think that must be George.
But like, George and I hung out at the event. I love George. Yeah, he has a fan club. I think I'm even in this fan club now because I go to any local event that he's going to be. I'm going to be there, even though I've seen him 20,000 times and he's signed all my books. I go just to hear him talk. He's humble. He's a good he's a good human. He's a family man. He knows everything about horror books and horror movies. So just listening to him talk about his favorites is worth going to just hear that. But as a writer, he writes from his heart. So he puts a lot of himself in his characters. I think every single book that has written, I think that I see him in it in almost every single book. I don't know. It's just, but it's not gory horror. So I think that's why he's keeps reaching higher on everybody's list to read, because he's not like super gory. Like I said, it's like baby horror. It's a stepping into the horror, the extreme horror. I don't know. He's just, and he can creep you out. You know, horror movie didn't really scare me, but there's been some books that he's written that have really creeped me out really well. Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
And he's a math geek. He's a dork. Like, he's a math teacher, and somehow, like, when I saw him on Tuesday, he brought math up. I'm like, who does that when promoting their own book? Like, he's totally geeky cool.
I love it.
So the next book I want to bring up, which I think is definitely going to be in my top 10 for this year, which it's weird because it's not horror. It's called I Want You More by Swan Huntley. Probably not on anybody's radar, right? Not on my radar. I had no clue who this author was. The publisher's like, it's Zibby Books. They're like, oh, we really think this is a book you're going to like. I put it off reading it. I didn't want to read it. I'm like, the cover, like, seriously, it's not really doing it for me. It's a peach, and it's like, I'm like, so I got into reading it. It's screwed up. This is like psychological thriller, horrible. Like, okay, so it's about this girl who is a ghostwriter, and she gets asked to ghostwrite for like a Rachel Ray persona. She's like the this perfect blonde TV cook host, whatever, and she's writing her memoir. So she invites this girl to come live with her for 3 weeks and get a feel for how she lives and to make the memoir perfect. And it becomes this I like obsession. I think we've talked about this. Becomes this obsessive thriller between, it starts off with being just the ghostwriter is where the obsession becomes, because she like wants this woman's life and she loves everything about her, like her style and how she eats and how she thinks and her mantras. And then it kind of twists where the chef becomes obsessed with her and her life. And it just melts together and becomes this really toxic, horrible relationship. And like that last quarter of it, I was reading it and I was like, oh my God, it's like, what is that, single white female? But like horrible. It's like, seriously, like it was really good. It was really, really, really good. Shocked me. The ending shocked me. I don't know how it's not being hyped. I'm not hearing about it online at all. I really feel like everybody should be hearing about this one. It's just, I don't know. It's going to make it into my top 10. I was like, if I can be shocked, it's going to my top 10.
Is it out already? You got an arc, right?
Yeah, this is an arc. Yeah, it came out. No. Yes, it came out last month.
Okay. All right.
So it should be out.
I'm going to look that up.
But I am going to talk about some books that aren't out yet. So
That's fine. We can look forward to them.
Want to order them for your library. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with Josh Malerman. He's like one of my favorite writers. Everybody knows him from Bird Box. Don't let Bird Box be the only book you read by him, because every single book is unique. His new book coming out next week is Incidents Around the House. I don't know if you can see, there's a little like teddy bear or bad rabbit or whatever there. This book surprised me because it's written completely from a child's perspective, which can fail. I've read a lot of books written from a kid's perspective and it fails horribly. You know, it's not believable. It's stupid and like babyish. I think she's maybe 9 years old and she's being haunted. Her house is being haunted. Her parents are trying to stop this force from it. What it wants is it wants to take over her body and possess her. And the parents are trying not to make that happen. And it becomes this family problem, but it all stems from family problems. So it's one of those where it's got, you know, she wasn't open to this spirit until bad things started happening around her with her family. I don't want to tell you what they are because, you know, you got to read the book to see what happens. But this book scared the crap out of me. Like I had to read it out loud to my husband a couple times because there were moments in this book where it's the little girl talking, right? It shouldn't be scary, but like she's just talking about the spirit in the room and how the spirit is in the corner of the room, and you could tell she's there but not there, and next thing you know she's on the ceiling. It's like, oh, I don't know. It was very creepy and scary. I think it may be my favorite by him so far, and I have all of his books and I've liked all of his books, but this one was the one that genuinely scared me. It's horror, not really horror. It's scary. I don't think there really isn't that much gore in it. So even tame-hearted can read this.
So it's more about the family dynamics. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, there's this horrible spirit in there. So the spirit is a huge part of the book, and she does some gross stuff. So there's the horror there. But I think in the heart of it, it is the horror of the family themselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He tends to do that a lot with his books. I think that's why I like him so much.
It kind of reminds me the way that you're describing it of like, because I'm older, Amityville Horror or Poltergeist or things where it's sort of like that child like perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, but Amityville was, Amity still has my heart. Even though I know it's not supposed to be, it really happened, I still want to believe that it happened. That book will always have my heart. That book scared the crap out of me. It's one of the scariest books I ever wrote. And I read, and I went into it thinking it was real too, which is bad. Next one is not out yet. This one comes out in September, but I kind of have to talk about it now because I think she's going to be going around talking about it. She's been to your horror thing at the library. I'm going to pronounce her last name wrong. Victoria
Dalpe.
Okay. So she does horror, and she's got this new book coming out called Celine Shade, Resurrectionist for Hire. So look at that cover, right?
Oh.
Like seriously, like this cover is absolutely breathtaking. If you go on my Instagram, Red Read Reviews, I did a recreation of this cover with my daughter, and I nailed it. I was like, oh, I had to pay my daughter an ice cream to get her to lie down on the ground and let me cover her in flowers and wet freaking fabric. Totally worth it for the image. Nailed it. But the book itself, it is so much more than the cover. It was fan freaking tastic, and it's the first in a series, and it's about Celine Shade. So she's the resident. So it's a time when witches are a thing, vampires are a thing. There's necromancers and resurrectionists, and these resurrectionists, you have the option to, when your father's going to pass away, and you can go to this woman and pay her a certain amount of money, and she will bring your father to life after he dies. He won't be the same, but he'll be able to talk and move. It's just he'll be slower, and he won't have all of his emotion or whatever, but he'll still be there, which is completely selfish if you ask me. Okay, Dad, I don't want you to die. Let's keep you around for a little while longer. Your body's still going to rot, but we'll keep you for a little while longer. So her job, she has this gift where she can do this. It's magic. But turns out there's a serial killer killing women in the area in this ritualistic thing, and she gets asked by a cop to help figure out what's going on by bringing one of the victims back to life and having her say what happened, and then let's put her back down after she's been alive 5 minutes and tells you everything that she knows about her killer. But then it becomes a chase to find out who the killer is and why are these rituals, and there's a vampire in there who's he's out but he's not out. I don't know, I dug the whole concept. I like the resurrectionist. She's quirky, she's not nice, she's kind of angry. I totally dig her. And then the people around her, you've got the witches who are all like, we don't respect what you do. It's very much cliquey, and it was really well written. There's some horror. There's some definite, this one does have some body horror and some like horror gore in it, but I really liked it.
Mm-hmm. Ginny says Shades of Charlene Harris. And I was thinking Pushing Daisies. Did you ever see that show?
No, I know of that. I haven't seen it.
It's where the guy can bring somebody to life for a few minutes to tell them who killed them.
Okay.
They can only do it for a few minutes, I think.
Well, this woman has the ability to bring him back for as long as the body will stay alive. But when this person's been brutally murdered and they're like missing a limb, you know, and they're on the autopsy table, she brings them back to life and she's like, okay, we're done with you. And she puts you back down. Like, oh, you didn't give him a chance. I've
Also reminds me of iZombie.
never watched that. My best friend loved that show.
Yeah, where she eats the brain so she can know what happened to them.
Oh my God. You watch zombies. See, you do have a dark side, Mina. I knew it. You're watching zombie crap.
I
That's
do.
awesome.
I'm reading a series by Janine Frost where it's very horrible. Vlad the Impaler, vampires, it's
Ooh.
sorcerers. It's really it's a rough read, but so good.
I knew it. You.
You have influenced me. But
I
Charlene
tried.
Harris writes the oh God.
She did the Sookie Stackhouse books.
Yes. Yeah.
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 So that's the only series I read by her. I didn't realize what is it called? Shade?
No, it's shades of Charlene Harris, like Charlene Harris.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
No, Charlene
Oh,
Harris
yeah.
definitely writes another series, but that Suki.
No, but yeah, I know what you're saying, because in the Sookie Stackhouse series, you got werewolves in there, you got vampires, shapeshifters, fairies. They all show up at some point. You have maenads. I kind of like that. I like how everybody's just there and they may be out, but they're not, and like, let's live together. You know, and it's very much, there's hate. There's definitely hate in this book, similar to the hate that happens in society now, just with vampires. You know, I don't know. I like that.
I have to ask,
So
when you say out, do you mean like out, like LGBTQ out, or out of the coffin?
you know the terminology. Out of the coffin. Oh, I love you. I do mean out of the coffin, but to me, it equates to being out of the closet as well.
Okay, all right. Man, it could be standing up. You know, whatever.
Cemetery Girls series. I don't know that one.
I don't either. Jenny, you are bringing it today.
I think I need to be friends with this person. They know all the stuff.
Jenny's a librarian. She's awesome.
Oh, well, that's why. Librarians know what's up. So I don't have copies of the next books that I'm going to talk about. I have another horror book. I know you guys are probably like, oh, horror. The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. So she's known for her Alice series, which I read the first book. I didn't really do it for me. And it's really dark. Well, The House That Horror Built is dark, not as dark as that series. It's about a woman who is the housekeeper at this mansion where this old recluse lives, and he used to be this horror director, and she's actually like secretly a fan of his work, but like doesn't want him to know. And so his house is kind of haunted. He doesn't know that it's haunted, but she's picking up on the vibes. And it just kind of, he's got a history, he's got a past. Did he kill his family or didn't he kill his family? You know, she kind of wants to figure that out. And it's like a mystery, but there's horror in there. People keep dying around him. It was really well written. I got sucked into it. I got Shirley Jackson vibes from it, like hardcore Shirley Jackson vibes. And everybody's trying to always rewrite her, but I don't think they do it well or believable. I don't know if that's what she was trying to do, because I got an Eleanor vibe that you get from what is it, the Haunting of Hill House. But I don't know if that's what she was trying to do with this. But I really liked it.
Good to know.
So
what was the title again?
That was The House That Horror Built.
Okay.
By Christina Henry.
Okay.
So my next two are thriller. The Paris Widow by Kimberly Bell. She normally writes domestic thrillers. I've read her for domestic thrillers. I'm over domestic thrillers. They're saturating the market. I need more. I can't hear about my husband's cheating on me, his girlfriend killed my daughter or whatnot. I can't do it anymore. I think she's gotten to that point with her writing, because this book, The Paris Widow, is fantastic. It's about this couple that are in Paris. They're kind of like just on a vacation, going around the world a little bit. And they get separated in Paris, and there's a bomb that goes off, and her husband goes missing in the area where the bomb went off. And she's freaking out, you know, a good quarter of the first part of the book is her freaking out trying to find her husband, what happened to him. I didn't so much like that whiny aspect, but it was believable because if my husband went missing, I'd probably be doing the same exact thing she was. So, all right, we'll let that pass.
Not for a
But
quarter
then
of a book though, Jody. You would be fine in like an eighth of it.
I was like, oh God, what happened to her husband? But so then she starts to pick up bits and pieces of what might have happened to her husband because people start contacting her that knew her husband. And it turns out she didn't really know her husband at all. And we find out we don't really know her at all. Through the halfway point of the book, you find out she's not who she says she was. And so it's still kind of domestic because, you know, she's looking for her husband and it's a marital thing, but it becomes this whole, not blood diamonds, blood antiquities. Do you know that's a thing? Yeah, I didn't either. So apparently there's this whole black market where people are selling like, I don't know, Monets to people who are just like, you know, they stole them from a museum and they're selling them to people. There's like a huge market. I guess it's like number 3. It's like number 3 up there with like cartels and like guns and stuff like that. If there's a huge market, lots
Yeah.
of money. Didn't know it was a thing. It's this whole book it's a thing. And it was so freaking interesting. She definitely did her homework on this. And it was nonstop from the first page. You're running, trying to figure everything out. You really don't get a breath. I think maybe, I don't even think the ending, you got a breath. It was very much like nonstop. I want to say it's like a conspiracy thing, but it's not. It's got that conspiracy theory kind of vibe where you keep like trying to figure it out, but then like, oh no, that really can't be happening. And I don't know, I loved it. It was so good. It
Mhm.
wasn't, except for the whiny aspect, it was really, really good.
I was gonna say when you mentioned the art, I was thinking of what was that movie with George Clooney, Monuments Man or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And so all
Yeah.
you think of a lot of that art is going underground and being sold. And this is
Yeah.
really interesting that there's like
Well,
this part of that book.
this is along the same lines, except like apparently they're keeping the actual art and selling forgeries. You
Ooh.
know, that's like got $10 million, you know, and these people have no idea that they're getting the forgeries. But then, you know, of course, this is a thriller, so someone obviously finds out that they got, you know, the wrong thing, and they're out for blood, and they're gonna kill you, kind of thing. Uh, she did a really great job. Like, I really like that book. So the next one is One of Our Own by Lucinda Berry. I read this one on audio. I think it might only be available on audio. And I think it's out now. So anybody that does audiobooks has access to it. Um, this was a hard read. It's about a woman who works for a suicide hotline. And she gets a young girl that calls up and said that she was raped and she wants to kill herself. So the woman tries to talk her out of it. Makes the mistake of giving the girl her cell phone number so she can reach her out. So, well, you know, think about it. Like, you know, do you ever can you shut that switch off?
Right.
Separating it. Yeah. So I totally got it. From the beginning, you can see that this woman has a heart of gold and she just wants to help this girl. Sucks you in. You're like right there with her, like, oh my God, we're going to help this girl. So the girl calls her again at home and there's more to the story than the rape, and she's getting bullied, and then she's thinking, maybe I'm not going to kill myself, maybe I'm just going to blow up, you know, all the kids that caused me harm. And she gives little fragments of information about her rape every time she talks to this woman. The woman is the mother of a teenage boy. It's a hard thing, you know. What have I taught my son enough about consent, about how to treat a lady? It was such a difficult read. It was very powerful. To me, it read like it should be. Remember when after school specials were a thing?
Mhm.
I feel like this should be an after school special. Those are not a thing anymore. So it'd probably become a Lifetime movie, unfortunately. Could be a Netflix miniseries. It's heavy topics, handled really well, tastefully. There are some super uncomfortable moments, but it makes you think about how you would approach these things as a parent. If you thought your son was involved, would you turn him in, or would you help him? Because you're hurting that girl by helping him, but you're saving your son. How much do you help that girl? How much, if she doesn't tell her parents, should she tell her parents? There's a whole lot of it's a conversation starter. It's the audiobook. I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 hours long. It was a real quick listen. Really well done. The narrator, emotion in her voice. There were points where I got tears in my eyes just listening. I'm at work trying to do my thing at work, and all of a sudden, you get this heavy thing that she's talking about, and her voice is so like, I don't know how she was doing it and not crying. Like, I wonder how these narrators do it. Like, you could hear that the tears in the back of her throat. I was like, oh, but Clem, I'm like, I can't work under these circumstances. And so then I leave work and I come home, and I'm on my drive home, and I'm like, God, this guy ruined me for the evening. But it's those kind of books that are the powerful books that send a message. And I think that it's one of every book Lucinda Barry writes does this to me. She did another one. I don't know, was it Keep Your Friends Close or something like that, about a gun in a family's home, and the kids find it and a child dies. Made me go home and have a conversation with my family about guns. The books that bring up conversation, while entertaining, you kind of feel like you shouldn't be entertained by the topic, but you are. Just really powerful. She's a damn good writer. It screwed me up, but it was really good.
So that makes me curious about why we read the books that we read, because, horror can be sort of an escape. It can be a safe place to experience like horrible things and sort of process that through. I mean, all the different genres have different reasons, but for the most part, people say they're for escape, like the genre books. But that book does not sound
There's
like
no
it was an
escape.
escape. Yeah.
No, it's right there in your face.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a book like that, because if my son, if he still lived at home, which he doesn't, because, he doesn't love me anymore. If he still lived at home, I would have come home from reading that book and had a conversation with him. These kind of books make me have conversations with my children or with my husband. I think that's the author's goal, is to spark conversation so these things don't really happen, but they do happen all the time. And it's sad. Sometimes you just need to feel, I guess. I like to not feel mostly, but like Lucinda Barry makes me feel. So I read her maybe once a year. I have not read all of her backlist because this is what she does to me. But it's like Kristen Hanna. I read her once a year. She makes me cry uncontrollably and ugly, but I read her once a year because I learn something every single time I read one of her books. I learn something, which is crazy. And she makes you get all the feels.
Mm-hmm. And she's such a good writer.
Oh, she really is. Oh my God. She hits it every time. Mm-hmm. We're doing, for my personal book club, we're currently reading The Women.
Mm-hmm.
I have not started the book yet, but I've already gotten texts from my friends saying, why do you do this to me? I'm like, well, we can't just read thrillers and horrible stuff all the time. I have to make you guys feel stuff occasionally.
Good for you.
I try. My book club currently at the library, we just finished reading Dexter.
Oh.
Have you read any of the Dexter series? Jeff Lindsay. I've only ever watched the TV show. It was on the TV at the time. And I love that show. Absolutely love that show. So I came up with the idea. I'm like, why don't we read the first book in the series? See how it differentiates between the series on TV. Oh my God, the book was fantastic. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about it tomorrow, but I loved the book. It was a lot like the first season. 2 or 3 small differences I was looking for in the book that weren't there. But I'm okay with them not being there because the book was written so well, and you really get into the mind of Dexter, who, he's that lovable serial killer.
Yeah. Oxymoron, if I've ever heard one.
No, he's getting rid of the bad guys. So can he really that's the topic right there. It's like, is he a hero or is he a villain?
Right.
I like those.
Yep. Yep. So we are out of time. It's 7:30.
Good, I'm out of books.
We've We timed it just right this time, but I will send out a list of Jody's recommendations, and you guys can just read till the next month. So we'll see Jody back again in July.
I'll be here.
Yeah. Have a wonderful night, Jody. Happy reading,
Thank you, you
everybody.
too. Bye. Thank you.
Good night.